General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks, June 16th to June 27th, state that the judge's blackmail secret may pose a threat, and Giovanni Gio Palmieri has an amazing experience. Willow Tate will also decide what happens next, so let's discuss what's in store. During the week of June 16th to 20th, Anna Devane will compel Harrison Chase and Dante Falconeri to discuss their issues in a PCPD detention cell. Meanwhile, Carly Spencer will show Jack Brennan how much she appreciates him and what he offers to her life. Jocelyn Jacks will negotiate with Vaughn in Professor Henry Hank Dalton's office before obtaining Dalton's phone to snoop on. Emma Scorpio Drake, on the other hand, will cause problems due to her rivalry with Jocelyn and the Dalton seduction plot she's devising. When Gio meets Emma later, their interaction will make an indelible effect. Could Gio share a kiss with Emma? Or will he run into her as she's flinging herself at Dalton? Next, Curtis Ashford will make an offer to Michael Corinthos, and we'll discover if it's about Aurora or another move against Drew Kane. Portia Robinson's attempts to save her marriage to Curtis will also fail since he would push her away and rely on Jordan Ashford instead. Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson will receive updates on some big news. Will this be tied to Trina's parental turmoil, or to the documentary in which they have been participating? Sonny Corinthos will seek Jen Sidwell's answers. Could Sidwell interfere with Sonny's escape plan for Natalia Ramirez? Or will this lead to more inquiries about Sonny's unknown enemy? Other GH spoilers claim Sasha Gilmore Corbin will be upset about something. So let's hope baby Daisy Gilmore Corinthos is fine. Sasha and Michael will finally talk about their difficult family circumstances. But this open conversation may also lead to Michael assuming a larger role in Daisy's life. Although Drew will encourage Jason Morgan to return a proposition to Michael, Jason will end up battling with Drew instead. Nonetheless, Willow will have to make a critical decision in the following episodes. Will she abandon Drew in exchange for access to the children? The week of June 23rd to 27th could reveal some shocking details about what happened behind closed doors in the custody battle. Cameron Matheson's social media leak suggested that someone was blackmailing Judge Eva Heron to secure Michael's triumph. If that's what happened, the truth will eventually come out. Perhaps Michael will discover that Tracy Quartermaine or someone else intervened to guarantee this custody triumph. That could make Michael desperate to keep the surprise under wraps. Of course, Willow's situation could become more problematic as well. Even if Willow pledges to stay away from Drew, something tells us they've developed a magnetic attraction that will be difficult to overcome. Curtis is on a quest to find Jacinda and pay her to claim Drew A. hired her for a passionate night and B. took the ketamine on his own volition. If Jacinda returns, will she agree to Curtis' terms? Drew will undoubtedly face more mayhem, as will Nina Reeves, who has numerous secrets that could be revealed. Nina's involvement in the drugging scheme, combined with her previous romance with Drew, will give her cause for concern. General Hospital spoilers predict the next 2 weeks will be filled with tight places and intense arguments, so stay tuned. Michael Corinthos stood at the edge of the Quartermaine estate gardens, his thoughts tangled like the overgrown vines twisting through the hedgerow. The legal case was over, the decision was decided, but the effects had only just begun. For weeks, he had known something was wrong, something about the judge, the way the gavel fell just a beat too quickly, the glances exchanged with the opposing counsel, and now it was becoming evident. Someone wielded influence over the judge, and that person had a motive. Willow Tate Corinthos, meantime, stood alone in the General Hospital chapel, her hands joined before her as if she were praying, though she wasn't sure to whom. The weight of her decisions crushed against her shoulders like a tangible force. Her health had improved, the transplant was behind her, but her life felt more uncertain than ever. She had gone through so much to be with Michael, to raise a family, and to provide a safe environment for Wiley and Amelia. But there was no longer any safety. Not with Michael unraveling from inside and the court's shadow looming over them. The revelation had arrived in parts. First came Diane Miller's late-night phone call warning Michael that the judge's decision appeared preordained. Then came the mysterious inadmissibility of key evidence, and now a confidential informant whispering of a cover-up so high stakes that it had the potential to unravel dozens of custody cases. The judge was not unbiased. He was compromised. And the extortion that kept him in place had a name, one that could sever the final sliver of trust in Port Charles's already frail legal system. Drew Kane harbored his own doubts. He'd been digging for weeks, working behind the scenes and quietly using Aurora Media's investigative arm to piece together the truth about what was going on in family court. What he discovered chilled him. The judge had been implicated in a bribery incident in another state years before, which had been swept under the rug and the documents sealed. But someone had found the images and paper trail. Someone was holding it over his head now, and the question was not simply who, but why. Why now? Why this case? And what were they hoping to gain? Drew tried to bring it up with Michael, sit him down, and convey the gravity of the situation. But Michael was not listening. He was too preoccupied with rehearsing the judge's ruling in his mind, too enraged and absorbed. He'd gone so far as to accuse Sonny of being involved, of using mob power to influence the outcome. Carly had tried to calm him down, telling him that while Sonny had flaws, he would not jeopardize his own grandkids by making such a move. But Michael had become suspicious, his faith in the system eroding quickly, as was his trust in those around him. Willow observed the collapse from a distance, quietly and heartbreakingly aware that the guy she loved was disappearing behind a wall of fanaticism. She had attempted to support and reassure him, but when he mentioned taking the kids and leaving the country, just for a while, he'd said, she realized they were on different paths. She refused to run. Not anymore. She'd spent too many years on the verge of death to abandon the life she'd worked so hard to create. Most importantly, she did not want her children to learn to avoid difficult situations. But the judge's secret was not going to remain hidden. The blackmail trail led to a recognizable name: Martin Gray. Martin, known for his tactical mind and ability to turn situations to his advantage, appeared to be acting on behalf of a silent client. Someone with a strong interest in ensuring Michael would not obtain complete custody. It was unclear whether the client was Nina or someone else. Martin had clearly slipped up. A clerk at the courts who had been overlooked and underestimated, overheard a conversation and relayed the information to someone else, setting off a chain reaction that was swiftly leading to exposure. Valentine Cassadine had learned about it first, through one of his numerous contacts within the court system. He considered briefly utilizing the information to his own advantage. After all, having control over a judge in Port Charles may come in handy. But then he recognized something considerably more dangerous. If this went wrong, the consequences would be uncontrollable. It would rip through the city's legal system, jeopardize his position on the ELQ board, and maybe bring down numerous of his allies. Valentine made a quiet call to Anna Devane, requesting her to look into the matter informally. Anna did not like what she discovered. As she delved deeper, it became evident that this was more than simply a case of a corrupt judge. There was a determined effort to influence not only one decision but many others. And the reach extended beyond Port Charles. But right now, her top priority was the protection of the children involved. She stretched out to Willow quietly, without Michael's knowledge. She asked her what she really wanted. Willow, for the first time, expressed her desire for peace. Not only for herself, but for Wiley and Amelia. She didn't want them raised in the shadows of vengeance and corruption. She did not want children to learn how to conceal and fight dirty. She wanted to discover a new approach. So she made a decision. She told Michael she couldn't accompany him, that she would not leave the nation or disrupt their children's lives to evade a court ruling, even if it was made under dubious circumstances. Michael, enraged and hurt, accused her of siding against him. But she was not siding with anyone. She chose stability, choosing healing, choosing the life they were destined to have over the one he was chasing through a labyrinth of paranoia. It shattered something between them. Michael stormed out that night, slamming the door behind him, and none of them knew whether he'd return. Drew, meanwhile, had brought the proof to Jordan Ashford. He knew it was a risk, but he trusted her judgment more than anybody else's. Jordan took one look at the file and saw how deep the rot had reached. She summoned a special investigator, someone from outside the jurisdiction, someone clean. The judge would have to be confronted, quietly at first. However, if he did not willingly stand aside, the situation would become public. The blackmail file would be disclosed, and Port Charles would have to cope with the consequences. Martin, recognizing the net was closing in, reached out to his client, but received no response. Panic set in. If he went down for this, he would lose everything. Worse, he may be disbarred. He attempted to work out a deal with the special investigator, promising partial cooperation in exchange for immunity. But it may be too late. And Willow? She did not inform anyone straight soon, but she did start taking efforts to protect her own future. She contacted Alexis Davis, asking for help amending her will, establishing trusts for the children, and putting safety nets in place. She knew whatever happened next would be messy. Custody would be reopened. Michael might still try to leave. The judge may fall. A new ruling might be issued. But she was not waiting for any of it. She'd spent far too long relying on the decisions of others. She decided to make her own. Even Carly saw the shift. She looked at Willow with pride and grief, recognizing the young woman's quiet power blooming. She offered her support and pledged to help in any way she could, but she also warned her that Michael, when pushed too far, could not always recover. And Michael was unraveling. He had begun meeting surreptitiously with a private security consultant, inquiring about off-grid sites and travel arrangements using aliases. He was preparing for a version of his existence without Port Charles or anyone in it. His sadness and indignation at the court's treachery had twisted into a kind of crusade, and he had no idea what he was becoming. Meanwhile, Judge Hensley received an anonymous envelope on his desk. Inside was a single photograph. Hotel room. Cash exchange. A typed letter reads, "Step down, or we go public." He looked at it for a long time. He then took up the phone. By the end of the week, he had resigned due to health difficulties. The court spokeswoman attempted to portray it as a personal matter, but rumors were already swirling. Diane Miller, who was constantly monitoring the situation, was preparing to file a move to reconsider the custody issue. However, she warned Drew and Willow that public exposure could cause more harm than benefit. Sometimes justice requires a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer. Willow took her children to the park that afternoon, where she sat on a seat while Wiley raced around the grass and Amelia napped in her pram. She took a deep breath and gazed around at the world, which was peaceful for the time being. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. Michael might come home. He might not. The courts might alter. The secrets may burst. But she'd made her decision. She would not allow turmoil determine her children's future. She would. And in that quiet defiance, in that steadfast decision to stand firm rather than flee, Willow ultimately stepped out of the storm and into the life she was determined to make no matter what. General Hospital spoilers reveal 3 ways Giovanni Gio Palmieri could forgive Brooke Lynn Quartermain. This mother and her son will eventually bond, so ponder how things might change between them. Brooke Lynn loves Gio before she even realized he was her own child. Brooke Lynn now has a stronger connection to Gio, but he is hurt, furious, and confused. Joe's entire world was turned upside down when he discovered Brooke Lynn and Dante Falconeri were his biological parents, implying that his adoptive mother had lied to him from the beginning. Brooke Lynn did not deceive Gio like Camilla Palmieri, Lois Cerullo, or Gloria Cerullo, but he still believes she abandoned him. Gio is stuck on the thought that he was unloved, which will make forgiving difficult. Nonetheless, there are at least 3 routes for Gio to overcome his pain and properly unite with Brooke Lynn as his biological mother. So let's discuss them. For starters, Brooke Lynn might make a spectacular gesture to express her devotion. Gio needs to understand that Brooke Lynn was a scared girl who wanted to give Gio the greatest life possible. This was never about abandoning him. Gio may be reminded of his former closeness with Brooke Lynn, as well as the possibility of a closer bond now. Camilla will always have a particular place in Joe's heart, but there is also room for him to open up to his real mother. Brooke Lynn only has to get through to Gio, so let's see whether a great gesture works. Another avenue to forgiveness could include a frightening incident that draws the family together. It's easy to see Brooke Lynn being in an accident that rattles Gio and makes him understand how much he stands to lose. However, there could be another type of frightening situation, one in which Brooke Lynn comes through for Gio when it counts. Whatever the case, there could be a soapy drama building that would bring Gio closer to Brooke Lynn and possibly Dante. If all else fails, time might heal all wounds. Joe's feelings are still fresh right now, but he may be able to better grasp Brooke Lynn's point of view in the future. GH characters like Tracy Quartermain and Rocco Falconeri could aid along the road, but what Gio may need the most is time to internalize everything he's learned. We believe Gio will eventually connect with Brooklyn and even Dante when the moment is perfect. According to General Hospital spoilers, Gio will continue to grapple with the adoption news and what it means for him, so stay tuned for more developments on this compelling plotline. Brooklyn sat in the corner of the Quartermain living room, nervously twisting a napkin between her fingers as she heard footsteps echoing down the hall. Every second passed with a strain that had not existed between mother and son just weeks before. Gio had always been professional and cordial, but there was an emotional barrier between them that no one could ignore. That difference had never been apparent than in the last month, when Joe's feelings, which had been buried beneath layers of silent animosity, began to bubble to the surface. Brooklyn had anticipated this reckoning. She'd been prepared for it since she finally told Gio the whole truth about his father, the years she'd kept silent, and why she thought she was protecting him. But none of that helped her to bear what she saw in her son's eyes. She had injured him, whether via acts she felt were good or omissions she justified, and forgiveness now seemed like a pipe dream she didn't deserve. But Gio surprised her. It began one afternoon at Rice Park, away from the Quartermain home, away from the stress of family meals and harsh chats behind closed doors. Gio had invited her to meet him there, and the tranquility of the surroundings caught her off surprise. She expected hostility and resentment. Instead, he was sitting on a seat, peacefully watching the water shimmer in the sunlight. She approached hesitantly. "Gio." He did not immediately look at her, but when he did, his demeanor was not frigid. It wasn't particularly warm, but it was somewhere in the middle. Measured. Thoughtful. "I've been thinking," he added, his tone level, "about how I can either take this resentment with me for the rest of my life, or try to understand you. I'm not sure if I can entirely forgive you, Mom, but I guess I'm willing to try." Brooklyn's heart clenched so hard she couldn't talk at first. Her knees almost gave out, but she sat next him, not too close, giving him room. "What has changed?" she finally asked. He shrugged. "3 things, I guess." She waited. "The first is what Leo said. We were at the gallery, and he was telling me how you always made him feel like his thoughts were important, even when no one else did. And I realized I had similar experiences with you when I was younger, before everything became so complicated." Brooklyn's eyes were filled with tears. She hadn't expected Leo, her cousin, to be the one to give Gio clarity. But Leo had a knack of seeing things that others didn't, and his words had broken something open. "I remembered a time you took me to the studio downtown when I was 8, she remarked. "You advised me to sing as if nobody was looking. I did. And you did not laugh. You said I had a voice. That I mattered." Brooklyn smiled sadly. "You matter, Gio. You always have." "I know," he responded. "But for a long time I didn't believe it." The second event occurred when Gio discovered an old letter in the Quartermain attic, stashed away in a box labeled "Personal, Do Not Open." Of course he opened it. Brooklyn wrote it to her father years ago, while she was battling with postpartum depression. She had poured her heart out on the page, writing about the humiliation she felt for needing help, the dread she had of failing her kid, and the overwhelming guilt that followed her around. She wrote that she loved Gio more than anything else, but some days she was too broken to express it. Reading the letter rocked Gio like nothing else has. It did not eliminate his pain, but rather reframed it. Suddenly, he recognized his mother not only as the figure who made decisions that wounded him, but also as a woman who had been hurting in ways he had never imagined. It was a mess. Complicated. Human. The next day, he delivered the letter to her without saying anything, simply placed it in her lap. When she read it, she gasped. "You weren't supposed to see this." "I'm glad I did," he replied softly. They did not say much that day, but something began to mend during the silence. And the third reason? It happened during an altercation with Chase, Brooklyn's husband and the guy Gio saw more as a father than anyone else. Gio had lashed out at Brooklyn during a meal, accusing her of putting her job, music label, and personal redemption arc ahead of her son's needs. Chase did not immediately defend her. He was just listening. Later, when they were alone, he told Gio a story he had not heard before. Chase detailed the night Brooklyn almost lost everything: her work, her family, and her sanity, because she refused to let a mob member to use deception for money laundering. It had been a quiet war that no one outside the family knew about, She'd held firm, even when she felt it may jeopardize her future. Because she did not want Gio to grow up in a society where compromise meant giving up one's soul. She fights, Chase explained. She usually does. Despite the fact that she is terrified. And typically it is for you. It did not miraculously remove Joe's resentment, but it changed his perspective on his mother, not as immaculate, but as someone who had done her best in circumstances he didn't completely understand. It was the accumulation of truths, both said and unspoken, that started to affect things between them. When Brooke Lynn met Gio again, he greeted her with a warm grin. Not forced or polite, real. And when she held him, he did not back away. The hardest aspect of their trip was not the anger, but the vulnerability. The willingness to admit how badly they had both been affected. For Gio, forgiveness did not occur in a single moment. It happened in little steps. Calling her mom again, showing up for Sunday breakfast, and seeking her advice on something minor, such as which tie to wear to the prom. It happened when he gave her a seat for his senior recital, and she accepted without hesitation. It came when she let him leave on his own terms and didn't cling on too hard. One night, months after their first meaningful talk, Brooke Lynn found herself outside Joe's room, listening to him perform an original work on the piano. She did not interrupt. She just stood there, one palm on her heart, allowing the music to wash over her. Later he answered the door, shocked to see her. "That was beautiful," she said. "Thanks," he responded. Then after a pause, "It's about second chances." She nodded. "I hope you'll always believe in those." "I'm starting to," he murmured, and for the first time, his eyes did not maintain distance. They had trust. Forgiveness was not a destination. It was a twisting path with stops and starts, detours and uncertainties. But they were now going together. Brooke Lynn and her son, mother and child. They were still arguing. They still had occasions when things remained unsaid. But now there was room for understanding, love, and something that had been buried behind years of misunderstanding. Brooke Lynn frequently reflected about the journey. She realized she had made mistakes. She couldn't change the past, but she could be present. Fully. Honestly. She could show Gio the woman she had become. The one who was no longer hiding, no longer fleeing remorse and humiliation. She cooked for him. I listened without interruption. When words were insufficient, I learned how to hold space with quiet. Their mutual trust became stronger over time. Gio surprised her again one night as they were walking around Port Charles. He reached for her hand. She looked at him, shocked, but said nothing. "Do you remember when you sang me to sleep?" he asked. "I didn't think you remembered." "I do," he answered. "I remember every word." She grinned, tears overflowing. "I still remember the melody." "Sing it," he instructed. So she did. Softly. The lullaby wafted over the night air. The same one she used to hum when he was terrified of thunder or nightmares. The same one she wrote when he was born. It was not ideal, but it was real. Gio closed his eyes. For the first time in years he felt secure. Held not only by her voice, but also by the truth they had worked so hard to achieve. The truth is that love does not erase sorrow, but it can heal it gradually. And this is exactly what they did. Fans of General Hospital said a long drawn-out goodbye to Lucky. Make that Lucky took his time bidding goodbye to Port Charles and his family. However, the actual action took place in the courtroom, when the judge made a startling ruling about custody of Michael and Willow's children. One figure that fans never warmed up to appears to be on the way out, while another fan favorite has returned. Then there's Christina, who made fans sigh with her newest great idea. Let's talk. Drew resorted to Martin for advice after losing badly in court. "Oh, welcome back, Martin. You have been missed." Even he couldn't perform the miracle Drew hoped for to reclaim Willow's children after she and Loverboy trampled on Michael's parental rights, and attempted to depict the man healing from burns as a deadbeat dad. That's what hiring Rick gets you. To be fair to Rick, did I say that? Drew did pitch the majority of Rick's tactics to the shady lawyer. Drew determined that if he gave Michael what he wanted and left Willow's life, Michael might allow his estranged wife to have contact with her children. Wait, are we supposed to trust Drew will do something selfless after everything he's done? Given that he spoke with Jason about giving his solution to Michael at the end of Friday's episode, and the promo for next week shows Jason berating him, I'm betting Drew's unselfish deed will vanish, much like his integrity. I believe this was the week when the truth regarding Drew's role in Willow's disastrous trip to Germany would be revealed after she brought it up on the stand, but it didn't. Come on, writers. We want Drew's dirty deed exposed and to see him go down in flames. We don't want him sacrificing his happiness for Willow because he adores her, especially after using Wiley in the manner he did. Punish Drew, please. Willow's breakdown after losing her children was epic, and to be honest, a mental health retreat at Shadybrook might not be a terrible idea. She needs some deprogramming from Drew's brainwashing. Viewers continue to speculate that Drew is Shiloh's resurrected body. Portia telling Kai how much Drew changed when he got out of prison fueled speculation that Drew isn't Drew. I don't think there's much more to say about Lucky's departure than what I said last week about how disappointing his return has been. I was glad he had a wonderful parting scene with Laura, because I would have blown up if he had left without saying goodbye to his mother. Unfortunately, there appears to be no chance for Lucky and Elizabeth moving forward. Poor Elizabeth, can she ever find love again? Will she have a great plot for once? Maxie finally got involved in Brooke Lynn and Lulu's rivalry, which I had been waiting for. While Lulu is her friend, Maxie made it plain that she was wrong and needed to accept responsibility so that everyone could go on. Lulu predictably shot it down, telling Brooke Lynn that she was not sorry for what she had done to her and would never be. Lulu merely apologizes for the pain she caused Gio. Is Lulu attempting to dethrone Drew as Port Charles's most despised person? And if he isn't careful, Dante will come in second place for the honor based on his recent performance. Yes, he feels hurt, betrayed, and enraged. However, to inform Chase that he should have stood up and forced Brooke Lynn to give him the truth? Dude, you haven't been alone for long. But if you keep this mentality, you will be for life. Good on Chase for telling his partner, I don't give my wife orders. What can I say about Christina's plan to have Cody seduce Ava, and then lead Rick after Elizabeth in order to break up Ava and Rick's blackmail alliance? Alexis stated it best. Has Christina learned nothing? We as viewers need a break from Christina's shenanigans. One of the week's highlights was Martin's surprising return. Not only that, but he's prepared to exact his revenge on Tracy. That is not going to happen, however. The writing is on the wall. These two's enmity will eventually lead to a heated kiss. Furthermore, Martin has already convinced her that he could be the solution to her Drew troubles. Why does Isaiah feel the need to intrude on Portia's personal life and problems? Unless it was a chemical test of some type. I can't be the only one who believes Portia will end up with Isaiah, and Curtis and Jordan will reconcile. Right now, this show appears to be on a mission to break up every marriage it can. What can I say about Natalia's apparent banishment to Belize at the hands of Sonny, as a result of her DUI and Turner's request that Natalia turn over evidence on Port Charles's longest-standing criminal? Natalia, enjoy the rainforest and the Mayan ruins. Finally, major news broke this week. Erica Slezak is joining General Hospital. It's only a short-term job, and no details have been revealed, although fans have long wanted her to play Monica. On the one hand, with Leslie Charleston's death, I don't think they'll recast Monica. On the other hand, it could serve as an appropriate conclusion to Monica's plot. I considered the possibility that she was one of Martin's recent ex-wives, but considering Frank Valentini's proclivity for bringing not just actors but also characters from earlier ABC operas, she may appear in Port Charles as Vicky Lord. That concludes my ideas and opinions this week. I'm sure I left something out. It's been a week, and today is Friday the 13th. So go to the comments and share your ideas. Also, who do you think Slezak should play when she hits the soap? Every personal entanglement, corporate alliance, and courtroom drama in Port Charles reveals a simmering resentment. Fans of General Hospital know that the show thrives on instability, but the chaos doesn't always bring the payout viewers want. The promise of resolution, justice, or emotional catharsis is frequently held just beyond of grasp. Over the last few months, committed followers appear to be becoming more dissatisfied than enthralled. Many people are starting to wonder if the show deliberately abandoned the concept of satisfaction as a storytelling tool. Drew Kane's recent trajectory is one of the reasons this topic has revived. Drew was formerly supposed to be the broken but competent alternative to Jason Morgan, but he has evolved, or possibly degraded, into something nearly unknown. Drew we see now is not the quietly troubled ex-Navy SEAL attempting to carve out a niche in Jason's lengthy shadow.